The delegate from Albemarle, Delegate Callsen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to talk about my home, Charlottesville. I wish I could take the time to tell you about the beautiful path outside of my neighborhood where I used to push my children in a double stroller. I make them walk now. And on how some mornings hot air balloons will float above you and if you're lucky land in the field across the way. I wish I could take some more time to tell you about the beautiful, vibrant downtown area that has little side alleys that are lined with ginkgo trees that turn the most vivid yellow in the fall. But Mr. Speaker, that is not why what I am here to focus on. I rise, Mr. Speaker, because I want to talk about 2017. I want to talk about how the political rhetoric of hate led to thousands of white supremacists grabbing tiki torches and storming the streets of my home, Charlottesville. I want to tell you on how that same hilly sidewalk that I pushed my children in a stroller, I was out knocking doors for school board on August 12th. And I had to pass by armed men with swastikas on their arms, boldly displayed on their chest, with Confederate and Nazi flags, with guns. I don't know what type. I know we often debate that, but big guns. I'd like to tell you about how on that day, as it unfolded, I continued to knock doors and how people answered them. They cried. They asked me to give them hugs, which I did, and I'm not a hugger, so that's saying something. And then as the day went on, they asked me to go inside because it was getting violent. I want to talk about those same ginkgo-lined side alleys that I walk by every day for work, and how one of them right now is decorated purple to honor and remember the woman who was murdered during those riots and rallies and the hate that was embraced on that day. I try to skip that street most days to avoid the reminder, but I'm here today to remind people. Hate has no place in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So, to see some of my colleagues welcome to the Commonwealth a man who is the embodiment of the rhetoric that led to that riot. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't make sense to me. I think we just heard a speech where someone said, "What are we doing about this?" And I guess I have the same question. Just a few weeks ago, they claimed not to stand with the most extreme wings of their party, and now they stand behind the man who boasts about his role as an extremist, a man who called those who came to my home very fine people, a man who has shepherded in the downfall of women's health care across the nation gleefully, a man who just said this past Sunday, blocks from here, that 100% of his party is made up of MAGA extremists. So which is it? Are they taking a stand against extremism, or are they endorsing it? I can't tell. Today, Mr. Speaker, I also want to mention it's the anniversary of Bloody Sunday, the march that forced our nation to confront the fact that Black Americans were treated as second-class citizens. That march was led by the Honorable John Lewis, and he spent a career as an elected leader showing us that although it is difficult, it is imperative that we stand up in the face of extremism and we reject it. We have stood up to protect Virginians. I am proud of the work that my colleagues have done. We have stood up in this session to protect voting rights. We saw bills that wanted to limit access to early voting, to get rid of polling stations in minority communities. We have stopped that with our own legislation. We have stood up to protect access to health care. A few weeks ago, we saw on this very floor that some were willing to defund hospitals and jeopardize health care for all of their constituents just to prevent women from making decisions about their own body. So, Mr. Speaker, I am standing here today with my colleagues to say there is no place in this Commonwealth for hateful political rhetoric. There is no place for what I saw in 2017. There is no place for MAGA extremism. It is not welcome in my home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.